Alright, our opponent won the die roll, but this hand looks pretty decent. So we've got the turn 2 cub with a Seed Sculptor to put a counter on it. So I think this is a keep. A little land heavy perhaps, but we do have a tidy conclusion at 5, so it could be worse. Another land is not what we are looking for here. Alright, red-black, and our opponent has a Reckless Fireweaver, so that could block the cub were it not for the Seed Sculptor. Alright, Judge is a nice one, since we have 2 creatures with essentially +1/+1 counter synergy. So let's play out our cub and see what happens to it. Foundry Inspector from the opponent. Alright, now it's gonna resolve, and it's also gonna deal 1 damage to us thanks to the Fireweaver. More lands, so let's see. We can play the Seed Sculptor, put a counter on the cub, attack, and our opponent's likely just going to trade with the Inspector, which is not that great. If we just attack with the cub, I guess our opponent just blocks with the Fireweaver, forces us to have the combat trick, and we don't have it, so it doesn't accomplish all that much. So do we want to trade a +1/+1 counter and a cub for a Foundry Inspector, or do we just play it slow and maybe get some value from the Armorcraft Judge? I think we do that instead. So we just play out the Seed Sculptor here and put a counter on itself, and then keep up, I guess, green mana to represent a trick. And then say go. Alright, our opponent with a Self-Assembler, so they might have a few of those in their deck, and nice synergy with the Inspector and the Fireweaver. So let's see if our opponent finds more Self-Assemblers. Alright, so they did find another Self-Assembler here, so we can expect that to get cast next turn, so doesn't bode well for us. We only have the 1 tidy conclusion, so the Longtusk Cub is not gonna get in there anytime soon. Alright, Bazaar Barge I guess is decent, so we could play that before the Judge, just because it draws us a card like the Judge would and can just block the 4/4 Self-Assembler, plus it could draw us into more +1/+1 counter creatures that make the Judge better. So I think I like playing the Bazaar Barge here. Puzzle Knot is not bad, can play and sacrifice that next turn. No attacks for now. And hopefully our opponent doesn't attack with the Self-Assembler, because that would probably mean they have instant speed removal for the Bazaar Barge, or maybe a combat trick. Alright, instead they play a Puzzle Knot, triggers the Fireweaver, only costs them 1 thanks to the Inspector. So the opponent's got some synergies going. They can also sacrifice the Puzzle Knot. And might instead play another Self-Assembler. Alright, no attack, so they probably don't have instant speed removal for the Bazaar Barge. Find a Arborback Stomper, that's not bad. So could force an attack with the Bazaar Barge. into 4 open mana. Opponent could have a number of things, but I guess they didn't attack, so maybe they don't. So could play the Stomper, could play Conclusion, could play Puzzle Knot and sacrifice it, so a lot of options. If we would use Tidy Conclusion, it would be on, I guess, a self-assembler, and we know our opponent has another one, so it's not all that great. We're not behind on board, since we have the Bazaar Barge that can block, so could just play and sacrifice the Puzzle Knot, or play the Stomper. I think those are the two main options here, and I think we want to dig for more creatures with +1/+1 counters for the Judge. So I think I'll play the Puzzle Knot, see what we draw, and then go from there. Right, Lawless Broker. That does make a +1/+1 counter when it dies. So would we rather sacrifice a Puzzle Knot or play the Broker? I think we probably want to add another creature to the board here. And I don't think we're attacking this turn. Maybe next turn we can force an attack with the Bazaar Barge. If the opponent makes a weird double block, we can punish them with the Tidy Conclusion. But I don't think we're there yet. And the opponent's probably gonna sacrifice their Puzzle Knot here. Alright. Weaponcraft Enthusiasts can make a bunch of tokens and ping us with the Fireweaver. Yep. Well, the Fireweaver got us all the way down to 14, and I guess the Puzzle Knot also did some damage. No attack still from the opponent, and we draw an Operative. I don't think it's time yet to play the Judge. Probably want to get some more value from that, so instead I think I'll sack the Puzzle Knot and then maybe play an Operative. Found a land. Yeah, let's just play an Operative and say go. Opponent plays their second self-assembler we knew about. I doubt they'll have a third one. Alright, they did not have a third one. That's good. And no attacks from the opponent. And Appetite for the Unnatural is pretty decent here. Can take out a self-assembler. So what would be nice is if we could play Tidy Conclusion and Appetite in the same turn, since if the opponent then tries to make any sort of double block with self-assemblers, we can maybe get some more value. So we're not there yet. We only have 7 mana, so maybe if we draw a land, we can do that next turn. So I think here we're probably just going to play the other Stomper. Still don't want to play the Judge with only one creature with +1/+1 counters, since we know we have multiples in the deck. So let's just play out the Stomper here. Gain some life back. And no real great attacks here. So let's say go. End of turn Welding Sparks on the Stomper. They have plenty of artifacts, so yeah, that's gonna work. So they might have been saving that for the Bowman Bazaar Barge. Alright, the self-assembler's getting in there. So if we animate the Bazaar Barge, and try and block with it. We want to make sure not to also block with the operative, since if the opponent does have another Welding Sparks, for example, the operative would lose Death Touch. So I think we just block with the operative here, since they have no real way to deal with the Bazaar Barge if it's not crewed. And then next turn we can start attacking with our Bazaar Barge. Could also block with the Broker and maybe something like the Cub, double block, but when we have an Appetite I don't really want to trade 2 creatures for the Self-Assembler. But I don't think we're crewing the Bazaar Barge, so let's go to blocks. I think do this. And then the question is, do we want to double block? Maybe something with the Lawless Broker? I don't think we do, since if we're blocking with the Seed Sculptor, we're losing a +1/+1 counter for the Judge. And throwing away the Cub seems silly. So I think we just do this. And see what the opponent wants to do about it. Alright, Unlicensed Disintegration on the operative. So we're gonna take 3 in addition to the 4, so it's gonna hurt, but at least we didn't lose the Bazaar Barge. And we're gonna gain 2 from the Appetite, so another Fireweaver. Alright, so our opponent's all in on the artifacts here. Found a Foundry Screecher, so we can go Screecher plus Appetite. But I think the Bazaar Barge is probably just gonna stay on defense to block the Self-Assemblers. So I think we're just playing the Screecher and then keep up Appetite and say go. Could also attack with the Lawless Broker, maybe trade it for 2 servo tokens. Might not be that bad since that sets up our Armorcraft Judge. Opponent might also just chump with the Enthusiast. So yeah, let's attack with the Broker. Could also just be trading it for 1 Reckless Fireweaver, but I think that's fine, since we still get the counter out of the deal. Could have also played the Screecher first to maybe put the +1/+1 counter on it, but that doesn't give us the freedom to play the Tidy Conclusion, and instead our opponent's just gonna chump with the Enthusiast. So let's play the Screecher and say go. And if our opponent doesn't attack, we're probably still going to fire off the Appetite just to use our mana. Alright, so let's see if the opponent attacks. They do. Alright, at this point I think I'm willing to crew. And see if our opponent has yet another removal spell. Let's block. And then make sure to use the Appetite before damage. Opponent might also have a combat trick, in which case we might want to use the Appetite on the Self-Assembler that's being blocked. Opponent passes priority, so I think we still want to use the Appetite even though our opponent might have the combat trick that makes their creature indestructible. Just because I don't want to be taking 4 damage unnecessarily. That works, we gain 2. That also works, but our opponent might have a burn spell to finish off the Bazaar Barge. Instead another Fireweaver. And a Wayward Giant. Alright, so they did not have anything for the Bazaar Barge, they're empty-handed now. So that bodes well. Rush of Vitality is a nice one as well. Alright, so we kind of turned the corner here. Can start attacking with the Foundry Screecher, we have the Armorcraft Judge. Let's attack with the Screecher. And I don't think we're playing the judge yet. Instead, we're just going to play defense. And if anything, we can use the tidy conclusion on the wayward giant. And we also have access to the rush. If the giant attacks, we can just block it with Bizarre Barge plus something like the Lawless Broker. Opponent drew a land. So could save the tidy conclusion to maybe take out a flyer that our opponent plays in the future, but we still have the Rush of Vitality to maybe force a trade with the flyers. I think we are using the tidy conclusion here, even if it's not strictly necessary. Trumpeter is interesting. So I think I just want to suicide this Lawless Broker, play the Trumpeter and go from there. And I think our opponent is going to make trades with the Broker here, since they can't just be taking 3 for no reason. And if they do make the trade, I think I'll put the counter on the Screecher, since that increases our clock significantly. If they go to 12 here, then it's a 3-turn clock with a Foundry Screecher with a +1/+1 counter on it. So this is totally fine. Don't need to use the Rush of Vitality here, since our Broker wants to die. Alright, opponent making sure. So this is fine, don't need to change any order since they're all the same. Alright, put the counter here. Play out the Trumpeter. And now we want to wait 1 turn before playing the Armorcraft Judge. Alright, sweet. Another Inspector that's gonna ping us for 2. If we really need to gain life, we can always use the Rush of Vitality just as a life gain spell. No great attacks for our opponents. Alright, yeah, well, we're definitely crewing the Bizarre Barge here. Maybe our opponent missed that, or they wanted to check if we missed that. Let's go ahead and play out our judge. And draw some cards. Lots of lands. And I think we have to keep up the Rush of Vitality. And still just attacking with the Screecher here, I believe. Could be a little more aggressive, but our opponent has these 1/3s that make attacking on the ground pretty difficult. So yeah, let's just hit for 4. And keep up Rush of Vitality to protect our Foundry Screecher. And maybe next turn we can make some more attacks on the ground. But our opponent has a decent looking deck with lots of removal. Alright, we got there. So, against a removal-heavy deck, lots of Fire Weavers. So we kind of do want more flyers in a way. Hazardous Conditions doesn't do much against 1/3s. Large creatures that die to Disintegration are not great, so I don't think I want the Cowl Prowler. The Coction module is interesting. Might be a little too slow. Is there anything we dislike in particular? The Colony could be bad, but it's not like our opponent has access to enchantments that prevent it from attacking, so it's not like we have that risk. Make Obsolete is probably not great, but we can probably still get a card of value out of it. Same with Appetite. I think this looks fine. Don't think we need to make any major changes. Would like to draw our Ovia at some point. Alright, let's take a look at our opener, which is a little land heavy. Can't play the operative on turn 2, so we're playing a turn 4 Wanderer, turn 5 Malphus squad. It's kind of loose, so I think I want to mulligan this. Alright, this is, I think, better. Don't have a creature to crew the freighter, but we do have turn 1 and turn 2 play. So yeah, let's keep, and yep, definitely want this on top. And we're on the draw, so we're going to draw the operative, so there's no risk of shuffling it away with the attune. So let's play the attune here, get another forest. And if we ever draw our Longtusk cubs, that's gonna be pretty sweet. And now we can just curve operative into freighter. Opponents attacking with their Fireweaver. I guess we'll call their bluff and block. They probably have a second Fireweaver, and I guess if they have a build to smash or something, sure, they get to trade with our operative, which is kind of annoying, but I would rather call their bluff now than later in the game. And it's kind of a free attack if they have a second Fireweaver, I guess, although they could maybe double block with their Fireweavers. So, not entirely sure. Alright, so they do have another Fireweaver, but now we get to play an artifact and they can no longer block, but I guess they probably wouldn't double block a death-touched operative anyways. So yeah, I think we do play the freighter over the trumpeter here. And I think I will attack. So I just need to hope our opponent doesn't play too many good artifacts here. We know they have a couple of those inspectors. If they have the Weaponcraft Enthusiast, that's 4 damage just from the Fireweaver triggers, plus 2 from the attack, so that's 6, that's a lot. So hopefully they don't have that one. Alright, just with 1, that's fine. And their play is a Club Security, so I guess now they can double block the Renegade Freighter. Makes sense. So do we want to trade a Renegade Freighter for a Club Security, essentially? Doesn't look like a great trade. But we could also attack with the operative if we crew the freighter with one of these 2 creatures. I think it's the Wild Wanderer. And then the operative still has Death Touch, and then I guess our opponent will take 3 and trade the security for the freighter. I guess that's fine. So let's play the Wanderer, get a Swamp, and then crew the freighter. And I don't think I'm too worried about our opponent erasing us, since if they're not attacking with the Fireweaver, it's pretty clear that they want to be blocking and trading. Alright, so I want to make sure to order the Club Security first. Yep, looks about right. And say go. Opponent down to 14, but they did get rid of our freighter. Ambitious Etherborn. Probably gonna make a servo token and ping us for 2. Although if they make a token, then the Wanderer might have some attacks into the Aetherborn or some blocks. So it's actually not that obvious. Alright, so they do go with the +1/+1 counter. So if we can draw our Tidy Conclusion, that would be nice. So our opponent did see Tidy Conclusion last game. So if they attack here, that's a little risky if we have the Tidy Conclusion, because then they could be taking 5. They decide to attack anyways. Alright, Ovia is nice. Opponent hasn't played any removal spells yet, so it's pretty likely that they might have one in hand. So if we can, we should try and bait the removal spells with our other creatures, since Ovia can take over the game by herself. So with 6 mana we can just play the Puzzle Knot, attack with the Operative, maybe get in for 3 damage, and then play the Trumpeter. Then if the Aetherborn attacks, we can double block with Trumpeter and Wanderer. If our opponent has a removal spell at instant speed, like the Disintegration, then we can resolve Ovia. I think that's fine. So I want to make sure to play the Puzzle Knot pre-combat. Maybe we can draw into something good here, who knows. A Longtusk Cub is not bad, but yeah, I think we are attacking with the Operative. And do we play the Trumpeter or the Longtusk Cub is a question. I think the Trumpeter just because it's more mana intensive. And keep up green. Could have also played Ovia, but I think waiting a turn might pay off here. Opponent plays a Puzzle Knot, deals us 2. Welding Sparks on our Death Touch creature, alright. That's fine. And do they offer the trade? They do not. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with how things went. Now the question is, do we sack the Puzzle Knot and go Cub plus Ovia, or do we just go double Cub plus Ovia? I think we want to sack the Puzzle Knot here. Alright, found a land, but I think we still play the Ovia here over double Cub. And say go. So our opponent still has Unlicensed Disintegration that we know about as removal spells. So hopefully they don't have that one. Sacking the Puzzle Knot. Play a land. And now we don't really want to be trading creatures, since the more creatures we have with Ovia in play, the bigger the golem we can make. Or construct artifact creature token, I guess. And our opponent is attacking. And we could double block and trade, but again, I don't think we need to. Yeah, I think we just take it here. It's a little risky, but just want to untap once with Ovia, and then we can make as many trades as we want. Alright, sweet. So 4, 7, 8, so we can play the Cub and then still activate Ovia. Alright, sweet. And now we can attack with the Wild Wanderer. And yeah, if we attack with both Cubs, our opponent can double block one and kill it, the other one goes through. So I don't think we want to attack since we have the long game locked up here. Although I guess our opponent can just double block the Wanderer now, but then next turn we can attack with all our 2/2s, so it's not the end of the world. And getting rid of a Fireweaver is actually pretty nice, since a way we can lose is if our opponent makes lots of artifacts and basically burns us out. I guess we probably should have played the Swamp in case we end up with a bunch of +1/+1 counters and then we draw into an Armorcraft Judge. Another reason to maybe attack last turn with the 2 Cubs is that we also get a counter on the Fairgrounds Trumpeter. And now I think I'm pretty happy to trade a construct for the Aetherborn. And I guess our opponent could have drawn into removal for Ovia, but I think still I would make this block. Unless I knew for sure we weren't gonna die. Alright, so they did have a Rush of Vitality, which they might also have had last turn. So if we did attack with both Cubs, that would have been pretty bad, since their opponent could have used the Rush on the Fireweaver. So their opponent back up to 15, 1 card in hand, so if they don't have removal for Ovia, I'm feeling pretty good about this. Well, never mind, they do have removal for Ovia. But we do get to attack with both Cubs, so at least there's that, and Arborback Stomper is a nice draw. So, do we want to attack with the Trumpeter as well? I think we do. So let's just attack with everyone. Alright, opponent blocking the Trumpeter. And want to make sure to use the Cub's ability now, before it's the end step, so we get a counter on the Trumpeter. Let me read this to make sure at the beginning of each end step if a... Alright, so we can also do this on the opponent's end of second main. So let's put a stop on main here, so we can do that again to get another counter on our Trumpeter. And Trumpeter gets a counter. Although depending on the board state, we might want to wait with putting the other +1/+1 counter on one of our creatures. Opponent attacks. And here we want to, I think, use it on this one. Also better if we draw Armorcraft Judge. Well, speak of the devil, Armorcraft Judge. Let's draw us 3 cards here. Die Young is pretty nice. Can just take out the Aetherborn here, and I think that's definitely worth it. Alright. And then go to combat. And I think we're pretty safe to attack with everyone. Well, we definitely had some fortunate draws the last few turns. Alright, sweet, so won 2 matches, and this is only a 2-match event. So got a nice little trophy to add to our cabinet. But yeah, that's gonna do it for my first Magic Online video. I wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.